What's going on, gamers? It's your boy Kyrogus back with another episode of Tier List. Now, this is our first episode of Tier List since it won Kyronia's favorite recurring series of 2022. So congratulations to the Tier List series on people liking the content. I was honestly kind of surprised this won. I expected it to be in the top 3, and it was very close between this and 2 others. But I didn't expect it to win. So congrats to Tier List for the Kyronian Award victory. But we are going to be ranking right now every single mainline series Pokemon game. Now, I was going to do Pokemon Generations, but I couldn't really find a good tier list for that. But I did find this one that had every mainline Pokemon game, which I thought honestly was probably better. So I could say what the peaks of each generation and all that were. Now, the reason I wanted to do this, and we might do another Pokemon tier list after this, I haven't decided what other tier lists are going to be in this episode. Recently, you probably saw, it's on both of my channels. On my main channel, there's a whole edited video about it and a short, 2 shorts actually. I just caught the shiny Dratini that I tried catching almost 2 years ago in March of 2021. I started shiny hunting for the shiny Dratini, hatched 1100 eggs, spent over 16 hours worth of streams trying to capture this thing, never got it, quit, gave up, 2 years go by, and then I finally decided to try again, and on the 3rd egg we got it. But just that, like, 15 minutes of playing Pokemon on that stream just really kind of put this little spark of Pokemon in my chest. Just in this little, tiny, frail Kyrogus heart. Just a little flicker of light of my old love for Pokemon kind of sprung up. For those of you who don't know, I got my start creating content as a Pokemon YouTuber. We did the most amazing series of all time. It has its flaws. It has its editorial flaws. It has its production quality flaws, but the spirit is there. The Pokemon Renegade Platinum Nuzlocke series, in my humble opinion, is still my favorite series of content I've ever made. I did a couple other Pokemon series after that, and played some other Pokemon stuff on YouTube, but I kind of really fell off. Pokemon kind of stopped giving me what it did before, and then I got into Dark Souls, which just completely changed my life. There's very few games I would say changed my life, and Dark Souls is one of them. There's probably 3 games I would say changed my life. Dark Souls is one of those 3. One of those other 3 is also Pokemon, so let's talk about it. But all that is to say, I haven't really played Pokemon. I got really disappointed by some of the newer games, especially with how high my hopes were for the Gen 4 remakes, and didn't really pan out how I wanted it to. So I've kind of been off Pokemon for a while, but just shiny hunting for like 20 minutes the other day, just the excitement I got from getting that shiny Dratini really made me remember the amazing feeling Pokemon has given me so many times in the past. So that being said, I kind of feel like talking about some Pokemon. So let's do it. I might have missed some stuff in chat. What do we see? Lance is lurking. Aloha's lurking. Just saw that. Sprite's not as good as High C Orange, though, from McDonald's. I might have to agree. What up, Clofus? Alright, let's do it. So where do we start? Should I just go in order? Should I start with what I think is S tier? Should I start from the bottom? Should I start from the top? What do we do? Alright, let's just start from the bottom and work our way up. So at the bottom, and have I played every game on this list? I don't think it has Scarlet and Violet, so I'll just kind of shoehorn that in. I have played every single one of these games. I technically did not play Ultra Sun and Moon, actually. Every other game on this list I've played. I played Sun and Moon, but not Ultra Sun and Moon. So we'll get there. But let's just get right on into it. So we'll go bottom to the top. My absolute least favorite Pokemon game of all time. If you know me at all, or know my Pokemon takes at all, you probably know this. My least favorite Pokemon game of all time, Pokemon Sun and Moon. I got this game right as it came out. I was in, like, late junior high or, like, early high school. At the oldest, I was, like, a freshman in high school, but I think I was in junior high. And I spent, I think it's like $40 at the time of my own money, which, for a junior high kid, is a freaking huge amount of money, because you don't have money or a way of making money then. And I remember playing it, and was just like so bored. I was like, this sucks, dude. Like, the game was really pretty. I thought the whole island concept was really cool. They got rid of the gyms, and a lot of people praised that, saying that the gyms format had become like uh stale and outdated because it was in every single game, and the games are so samey and too predictable. But for me, I liked the reliability and dependability of what Pokemon's structure was. Like, I like knowing, okay, there's going to be 8 gyms, there's going to be a Pokemon League with 4 Elite Four trainers and the champion. But what else around that is there going to be? What's the story going to be? What are the cool new Pokemon going to be? How hard is the game going to be? Because, believe it or not, even under the same structure, the difficulty of these games varies like freaking crazy, as we'll talk about more, I'm sure. So I didn't feel like they needed to take out the gyms, and since they did, and they replaced it with like the island challenges, and then there was Ultra Beasts and all this stuff, and it felt way too different. Like, it didn't feel like Pokemon anymore. A lot of people thought it was a great step in a new direction to, like, just spice it up a little bit so the games didn't all feel the same. But for me, what felt the same about the games, the things that did feel the same, were awesome. And I loved that. And the other stuff about each game and each generation that was different was what I was excited to. So when they completely changed the format, it just didn't feel... I didn't feel like I was working towards anything. In all the other games, it's like, oh, I gotta collect these badges, and I feel like I'm making progress. I didn't feel any sense of accomplishment from, like, completing an island trial or anything. So it was just kind of weird. There was still an Elite Four in Pokemon League, but it's like, I barely cared by that point. I don't know. I really did not like my experience with Sun and Moon, and it was the beginning of the decline of my interest in Pokemon, although I say that. My interest in Pokemon definitely peaked much higher again after this game came out, not at all because of this game. But I had always loved Pokemon, like, to the max. This was the first time my interest in Pokemon ever went down, was with Sun and Moon. So because of that, I never played Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. They're the only games I didn't play. I have heard they are substantially better. Maybe not substantially, but they are very... I've heard Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are actually good, but I have never played them to be able to actually give an assessment. So because I've heard, and I truly believe they are better than Sun and Moon, I'll put it in D tier, but I've never played it, so I don't really have anything else to say about Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. But moving on, I said I was going to go bottom to top, but it's kind of tough for me to know what's next. So it would be, if I was going to add them in, but they're not in here, Scarlet and Violet. I also technically haven't played those yet. I'm going to. But I've actually seen a good amount from the game, and I definitely know I'm not going to like those as much as any of the other games either, from what I've seen. So I would put Scarlet and Violet probably in D tier as well, maybe C if I was feeling nice. But I would put them just right up with Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon since I also haven't played them. Scarlet and Violet have been like the most polarizing generation of Pokemon games that I've seen, because I feel like there's no one in between. I feel like everyone loves them or hates them. And I feel like the majority is more on that negative side, but there's a strong amount of people who are like, this game is awesome. So it's kind of hard for me to tell, based off that, what that means about the game. Is it somewhere in the middle? Or are one of those two sides just really blind to what actually matters? And I don't know because I haven't played it. So I'll have to play it and get back to you on that. I'm certain I'll have an opinion after my playthrough. And from what I've seen, I don't know if that would be good. But I won't judge Scarlet and Violet until I've played them. What would be next? This is kind of tough. Normally I switch stuff around whenever I'm rating the games. Or whenever I'm making a tier list, I'll switch stuff around. Sorry, hold on. The music got kind of loud. Normally I'll switch stuff around and I'll kind of let my opinion be fluid as we make the list. Can my camera focus? But I kind of am wanting to do this bottom to top. What would be my next least favorite games? Kind of tough, to be honest. I'm gonna I'm thinking about which of these games I would like to replay, like probably the most or the least. It's pretty tough. Okay. Let me be clear that of the ones we talked about so far, Sun and Moon, I definitely hate. Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, I haven't played, but I've heard is alright, but I know I definitely wouldn't like it that much more, considering it still probably follows the same general format, and I haven't played Scarlet and Violet. So those 3 games, Scarlet, Violet, Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon, those are in like a bottom league of their own. So there's a gap between those 3 games and what's next. And I might change it, so before everyone comes from my head, I might change it a little bit. So this might not be final. But next, I didn't think this would be quite this low. I'm gonna go Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. I played these games, I never beat them. I mean, it's like, what, the 3rd or 4th Gen 1 remake, so I kind of know how the rest of the game was probably gonna play out. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are the least like a normal Pokemon game of all of the games on this list. Of all the main series Pokemon games, they are the most different mechanically. Sun and Moon had like the same mechanics as all the other Pokemon games, but like the structure and format was way different. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee has the same like format, but the mechanics are a lot different. Mainly just the capturing mechanics, but it's one of the absolute main functions of Pokemon. Like, do you spend more time capturing Pokemon or battling Pokemon to Pokemon? Probably pretty close. Battling is definitely more of what you do, but with capturing being so different, I'd say it's probably like... Capturing is probably like 30 to 40% of the main, like, gameplay. Maybe that's overstating it. Point is, a massive gameplay mechanic is much different. And it's not necessarily bad. It's just they take the capturing mechanics from Pokemon Go and put them into a console video game. So it's kind of weird and jarring. Doesn't work exactly how you would expect it to your first time playing. I also hate that you can't play the game with a controller. You have to play it in handheld mode, or you have to play it with not even just the 2 Joy-Cons. You have to play it with 1 Joy-Con. So I also just didn't feel like I was playing a video game when I was sitting in my chair holding this tiny little Joy-Con to do everything. It feels really weird. So I didn't like how the game felt in that way. The game is really beautiful. I do think the capturing mechanics are fine. There's nothing, I wouldn't say there's anything necessarily bad about them. They're just different. And with Pokemon, kind of like I was saying, I don't necessarily like things to be super different from the stuff I'm used to mechanically, because then it just kind of feels like a whole different game almost. And that's probably a little bit too nitpicky, but that's just kind of the taste it left in my mouth. That's kind of how I feel there. They just didn't really keep me, like, engrossed in the game. Maybe it's because I'd seen that region a lot of times, but I really just didn't feel a drive to need to keep playing this one. So yeah, I'm gonna go Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee there. Next, oh boy, we're getting into some nitty-gritty. Next, also in C tier, I actually like these games. Also, and I didn't, like I said, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is a considerable gap above the bottom 3. Again, Picture, Scarlet, and Violet is in D tier for now. This is going to be also in C tier. And Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee was significantly above the bottom 3. But I would also say this next game, I definitely like a few steps above Pikachu and Eevee, but I'd also put it C tier. That's going to be Pokemon X and Y. So I'm going to move it further to the left, because I do like it more than Pikachu and Eevee. X and Y, in my opinion, is overhated. Really, so I even noticed this. I got this game, I was like somewhere between the ages of like 10 and 12 when this game came out. I had Y version. And even I noticed right then, wow, this is the easiest Pokemon game I've ever played. Pokemon games really got easier after Gen 5. At the start of Gen 6, the games got much easier, and they never really got harder again. People like to say, oh, well, the games just feel easier now that you're older. That is partially true, but there is no doubt that the games got way less difficult once they switched to 3D. I don't think that it necessarily is because of the switch to 3D. I think they just decided to make the games easier. Pokemon has always been a kid's game first, even though a vast chunk of the fan base is fully grown adults. It's always been a kid's game, and they just seem to lean a lot more that direction in Generation 6 and never really looked back. Not really looked back. But I really do like Pokemon X and Y. The introduction of Mega Evolutions, I was definitely kind of a question mark on Mega Evolutions at first when they were first announced, but I grew to absolutely love them. I think they're easily the best generation specific crazy battle mechanics. So like Gen 7 had like the Z moves. I freaking hated the Z moves, so cringe. Sword and Shield had the Dynamax, which is okay. I mean, they're way better than Z moves, IMO, but Mega Evolutions is just the way to go. Dynamax was kind of whack too. Dynamax was just your Pokemon gets really big, and the moves get very samey and super powerful. Mega Evolution, it was still the same Pokemon, but you got to buff one Pokemon. It had a completely new design, which is super cool. It was just awesome. And then now, Generation 9, Scarlet and Violet has the crystallization or whatever, which I gotta admit, I think it's like a half step better than Z moves, but just looks so cringy. It like changes the types. I don't know. Maybe I'm just an old head, but I don't vibe with it. Point is, X and Y Generation 6 introduced Mega Evolutions, and it was awesome. I was hesitant at first. I kind of thought it was weird. I was like, what am I playing? Is this Digimon? Like, that's kind of what I thought when I was playing this game at like 11 years old. But then when I got into it, I swept the entire game. The second I'm not even a Charizard fan, but I picked Greninja, and so I didn't pick Blastoise for my first playthrough because I had Greninja. So I was like, I don't need Blastoise, so I got Charizard. And Mega Charizard Y, literally the second I got the Mega Evolution for Charizard, I did not play another Pokemon the entire game, and I literally swept the entire game. Once I got Mega Charizard, I just Mega Charizard Flamethrowered, literally from like the third gym or whenever you get them, till I beat the Elite Four. I literally swept the entire Elite Four. Granted, by the time I got to the Elite Four, my Charizard was like level 70 because it was literally carrying everything. But I knew the whole time I was going through the game, I was like, this is really fun. I had never seen I had never seen Pokemon in a 3D setting at that point, so I was just like in shock and awe at the beauty of seeing my three-dimensional Mega Charizard actually like make an animation and actually physically breathe a fire out of his mouth with every flamethrower. It was just the coolest thing ever. Flamethrower has always been like my favorite Pokemon move. It's just so cool. And so seeing it in 3D, seeing this big dragon actually breathe fire out and roast these enemies alive. My entire playthrough, I literally beat the game in like a day. It was like a 12-hour playthrough. I literally got the game on Christmas, and by the end of December 26th, the game was beat. Like, I literally just played Pokemon Y till I beat it with my Mega Charizard. Point is, I knew then and there, okay, these games are super easy. Is it because Mega Evolution's overpowered? Yes. Is it because the XP share changing to always be active for your entire party? Yes. That stuff made the games way easier. Plus, like, each trainer only had, like, 3 Pokemon max. Some of the Pokemon gyms, and I think Elite Four members only had 5 Pokemon for some reason. In my opinion, every gym leader and boss battle should have 6 Pokemon, since you're always gonna have 6 Pokemon. That's just my opinion, though. So it was definitely way easier, and there was some stuff that was whack about it. But the jump to 3D was cool, although by now I'm just pissed off at it because the 3D models have not really improved like at all since 2012 or whenever these games came out. Like, since the very first 3D models, they've never really improved. Pokemon just kind of stand in a doofus idle animation. Some of them got a little bit better. They've made them like a little bit more high def. Some of the colors have been tweaked a little bit to be better, but the switch to 3D initially was super cool. I definitely prefer sprites at this point though, because I assumed the three-dimensional, what's the word I'm looking for? Forms, you know what I'm talking about, whatever their models, the three-dimensional models. I assumed they would improve over the next decade after X and Y came out, and they really didn't. They were like the exact same. So that was annoying, but it was really cool. All that to say, X and Y, I have a lot of positive things to say about it. Not too much negative, other than they're very easy. And that kind of started the... It was kind of... Although I really liked X and Y and think it did a lot of good things, it definitely was the first step in the wrong direction, in my opinion, for Pokemon. Although I almost might say... I might attribute some of that to Black and White, but stuff became very apparent in X and Y. What would I say is next? Well, I think I definitely know what's next. Next, I would say... I don't know if I should put this in B or C tier. I don't know why these are listed as separate games either. I'm going to say next is Sword and Shield. Now, like I said, the DLC is... It's the same game. It's the same. Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield is one of my most played Pokemon games. Sun, Moon, F. I absolutely hate Sun and Moon, Clovis. I gave a lot of explanation at the beginning of the segment. This will be on Kyroga streams as well, by the way, so if you're watching this live on Twitch, make sure to check out the YouTube video and smash like on Kyroga streams, and if you're watching this on Kyroga streams, make sure you follow me over at twitch.tv/Kyrogus. But yeah, I hate Sun and Moon. It's my least favorite Pokemon game by far. And if you love it, that's fantastic. I have no animosity towards you. Everyone is free to love whichever Pokemon games they want. And if Sun and Moon is your absolute favorite, I don't think any less of you. I just wholeheartedly disagree. Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield is the most I've been into competitive Pokemon. Now, I always thought competitive Pokemon was cool, but I knew what EV training was all the way back in like Generation 4 as a kid, but I didn't understand it. I just knew what it was. I knew of it, and I knew that's what people had to do to really battle competitively. And then so that was like Generation 4 that I first knew about it, and I was interested in it but never really did anything. Generation 6 is the first time I ever really understood kind of what was going on, and I never really got good at competitive battling, but I got into EV training a little bit and kind of dipping my toes into that, and then I pretty much skipped Generation 7. So when Generation 8 came out, I was a senior in high school, and you know, I'd grown in intelligence and maturity, so I was really, and my love for Pokemon, it wasn't really because of Sword and Shield, but it was just kind of at the same time as Sword and Shield. My love for Pokemon really flared up, and so because of that, and it was the newest games, I really poured my heart and soul into competitive battling. Now, I'll admit, Pokemon Sword and Shield, I do think it is a lot better than Sun and Moon. A lot of people say Sword and Shield is the worst of Pokemon, like it's even worse than Sun and Moon. I disagree personally, but I definitely see all the things bad with Sword and Shield. The stories just got really boring and lame, and I don't really care about that, but I really hate it when it's drawn out. And I felt like Sun and Moon was the most drawn out story that was so boring. The most in-depth story is definitely Black and White's series of games, but that story is actually interesting, so I don't really have a problem with it. Sun and Moon story is just, I know I'm going back to dunk on Sun and Moon some more, but it's just, to me, mind-bogglingly boring. I just could not wait for it to be over, just spamming A through it. I just couldn't care less. Sword and Shield has a bit of that, but I feel like it streamlines it a little bit faster. Maybe that's because it was back to the comfortable format I was used to, so I didn't feel like it dragged out as long, but it wasn't great either. It was pretty dumb. Sword and Shield has its issues. I liked the change to tall grass not just being a random chance encounter with every step, that now you could see the Pokemon and choose if you wanted to encounter them or avoid them. I think that's a good mechanic change. I really like that they added that in this game. I think Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee technically did it first. But it was the first time it was in like a real main series game. Yes, technically Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is, but you know what I'm saying. I like to see it in an actual mainline Pokemon game, in a new Pokemon game. So that was good. I do think that is a good mechanic. Now, I don't necessarily hate the random encounter format, but I do think I prefer seeing the actual Pokemon in the overworld and getting to choose to encounter it or not. I think I do prefer that. So Sword and Shield kind of made that mainstream in Pokemon. Even though Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee introduced it, I believe. I want to make sure I'm not wrong about the release of those games. I am like 85% sure Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee came out the year before Sword and Shield, or maybe the same year and it was earlier that year. I don't know. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Let me know. But I'm pretty sure I'm correct. Point is, Sword and Shield did add that. And Although the graphics definitely had their issues, I've never really cared that much about graphics as long as things run properly. And it didn't run amazingly, but I did think the game was a fun world to run around in, and I thought the graphics looked pretty enough for my taste. A lot of people weigh graphics a lot more heavily than I do, but I still really like that. All that was to say, Pokemon Sword and Shield easily had the most accessible competitive scene ever. It was never as simple to get into competitive battling as it was in Sword and Shield up to that point, and I absolutely adored that. Not only was I able to viably get into competitive Pokemon at that point, but it was so easy for me to I have like 2 or 3 full boxes on Sword and Shield of fully EV trained, perfect IV, competitive, ready Pokemon. And I was able to switch my team out all the time. Now, I did end up with like a solid Rockstar core team that I used a lot. But it was just so fast and simple and easy to get a competitive team together. And so a lot of people, I think, grow really fondly of the first time they really get into competitive Pokemon. And I gotten into competitive Pokemon before Sword and Shield, but I was never as strong as it was in Sword and Shield. I grinded and got Master Ball rank 4 months, I believe. It was 3 months in a row. Then I think I took a month or 2 off. And then the first month they introduced being able to have 1 legendary on your team. I really didn't like it by the time I was done, but I did grind with a team with Kyogre to get Master Ball rank for my 4th time, I believe. And that was just really, really fun. And I've had so many hours in Sword and Shield. Like 370 hours on my Sword and Shield account. Plus I've done a lot of shiny hunting on it. Y'all got to see that recently. I did a lot of really fun stuff and had a lot of good times with Sword and Shield. No, I don't think they're as good as pretty much all the games that came before it besides Sun and Moon. And I guess Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. But for me, it definitely felt like a step up from the dip Pokemon had been in right before it. And a lot of people would disagree and say that Sword and Shield was the absolute lowest point of the valley of the Pokemon dip at the time. And you're free to have that opinion, but for me, my experience was so much better than that. And yeah, I have a lot of good things to say about Sword and Shield and my time with it. I really enjoyed it. I will say, the replayability in it is essentially non-existent. I would never, ever, ever play through a new file of Sword and Shield. I would never have any reason to. There's absolutely no way I would ever want to play through, like, just the main game of Sword and Shield again. And, like, none of my fun came from that. All my fun came from the post-game. But I will say, I had a lot of good times with Sword and Shield. Replayability not really existent. And I don't really feel like any of these have much replayability, to be honest. Of the games on here, it's between, of the games we've done so far, I'd say it's between either X and Y or Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which is the most replayable, and I'd probably give that to X and Y. But I do really like Sword and Shield more than I feel like most people do. Alright, we'll get to the next game on the list in just a second. Well, if you somehow are hearing my voice still, I hope you're doing well, and I hope you feel better. About to fall into a NyQuil coma for the night with a head cold. Listen, I'm sorry, bro. Colds suck. I know it's like a common cold. That's like the whole deal, so it's a common cold. I literally hate colds. Colds are one of the worst. Like, I just feel so weak. I feel so disgusting. I feel so awful. I just feel terrible. So many other sicknesses, I feel like I just handle better. But colds, even though they're like the least serious kind of sickness, just so miserable and uncomfortable. So I feel for you, Praminus. I hope you manage it well, big bro. But let's get back to this Pokemon games tier list. I'm enjoying this. Chat's kind of dead, but that's okay. I'm getting a monologue about my history with Pocket Monsters, and in a way, that's somewhat therapeutic. So let's get back at it. What is next? So we have Sun and Moon in F tier, Ultra Sun and Moon, and Scarlet and Violet, the games I haven't played. I put in D tier. I haven't played them, but they also don't look that amazing to me. In C tier, we've got Sword and Shield, X and Y, and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. That's in descending order. What's next? Are we rising out of C tier to B tier? I'll say yes for now. I'll say yes for now. Some of this might get streamlined because a lot of these games I kind of have to group together. So Next up, I'm going to put... This is kind of tough. This is kind of tough, actually. TBH is kind of tough. Next, in B tier, I'm going to put Gold, Silver, and Crystal, all kind of on the same level. I haven't really played these versions either. Not exactly. I mean, kind of. But not exactly. I've played them and not like played through them because I always had Heart Gold, Soul Silver, so I didn't really see the point that much, personally. That being said, the things that the second generation of Pokemon did for the series, that Johto did for the series, cannot be understated. The new Pokemon were awesome. The fact that in the post-game, you could go back to the Kanto region and see where all of the characters, including your playable character from the first game, see where they were at in the second game. Absolute insanity. Honestly, one of the best, like, sequels I can think of in, like, any game franchise. The secret hidden final super boss of the game being your player character from the first game, just super beefed up and easily the strongest enemy in the entire game, is just such an amazing and cool idea. Something that if I'm ever making video games, I would probably definitely implement. Just so awesome. So that cannot be understated. Definitely the best thing about Silver, Gold, and Crystal. Only in B tier though, because I think the early generations of Pokemon have some issues that definitely got better, but you can't disrespect kind of the amazing baseline that these older games set, you know. That being said, next, I'm going to put Pokemon Red and Blue. I will put them above. Now, I do think... It's hard to say. Pokemon Red and Blue are just what started it all. It's where the whole series began, and I have played through a Pokemon Red playthrough. And yes, a lot of the old mechanics and just kind of the aged nature of the game is a little bit annoying at this point, with how much more quality of life improved the games have become in a lot of areas. But that being said, yeah, the graphics are kind of wonky. They were kind of dated when they came out. Game's pretty old and definitely dated. But that being said, it's still a great game. And it really, I mean, obviously with it being the first game, it's what started it all for this Pokemon format and series. And can't disrespect that at all. Just so much respect for what these games started and what they accomplished. That being said, I do actually, from the first two generations, of all the original Pokemon games, from generations 1 and 2, I actually prefer Pokemon Yellow the most. Now, that's kind of interesting considering I say I like the normal format of Pokemon in general over like the kind of gimmicky ones. And of the first two generations, Pokemon Yellow is definitely the most gimmicky. You don't get the traditional 3 starters to start out with. You start out with a Pikachu that follows you around and all this random kind of weirdness that goes with that. It can learn like fly and surf, and it like has to be with you. Something about that, I think it's the maybe not replayability is the right word, but with how unique that is, for me, of all of these older Pokemon games, I most enjoy going back to play Yellow. Because even still, it feels different to most all other Pokemon games that came before. Now, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is definitely the closest to that we've had since Pokemon Yellow. But going back to play the original, like Pokemon in its most primal original form, my favorite way to experience that is Pokemon Yellow. Even if it's technically a little bit of a gimmick mechanic game. But not even so much, not too much. I'm putting emphasis on that because that's the most notable difference it has compared to the other Pokemon games of its time. But yeah, of the ones I would go back and play right now, the most it would be Pokemon Yellow. And I guess I'd put Crystal over Gold and Silver. And I would maybe play Crystal before Red and Blue since I would play Yellow. Like, if I'm going to experience Gen 1, I want to play Yellow. If I'm going to experience Gen 2, I'm probably going to play Crystal. Probably. So I honestly might just throw Crystal over Red and Blue and just say I prefer the kind of more definitive forms of those generations. That's going to be how it is for pretty much all the games, TBH, so just be prepared for that. I always prefer the game that kind of brings them together over the individual games, but we'll get there. So I'd probably do it in this order. I'd say of the first 2 generations of Pokemon, I play in order, in descending order, so best to worst. I would prefer to play Yellow, then probably Crystal, then Red, Blue, Gold, Silver. Moving on, I'm not jumping up to A tier yet. We're going to stick in B tier. And next, I'm going to say Black and White 2. Now, a lot of people say Black and White 2 is better than Black and White. And that may be true objectively. Dang, actually, now that I think about it, Black and White 2 has got some dope stuff in it. It's tough. It's tough. The problem is, I didn't play Black and White 2 as a kid. I went back and played Black and White 2, like, as a teenager in high school. So I was probably like, Black and White 2 came out when I was probably like 8 or 9. And I never played it until I was probably 15 or 16. Now, I did play the crap out of Pokemon White version, the one with Zekrom, at the time of its release. I played that game so much. And so I have a lot more nostalgia for Pokemon Black and White than I do Black 2 and White 2. But I can't deny, Black 2 and White 2 has got some dope stuff in it. Most notably, what comes to mind is... Dang, I'm thinking about it. Black and White 2 is awesome. What comes to mind is... I forget what it's called. It's like the Pokemon World Tournament. It has like an acronym. I can't remember what it is. But there's a area in the postgame where you can go and fight in these tournaments against very notable Pokemon NPC trainers from not just in that game, but around just like the Pokemon universe. Like you can battle Red, you can battle, you know, all these Elite Four members and champions and gym leaders of other regions and generations. So freaking cool. That's another thing. If I was making my own Pokemon game, I would 100% want to add a feature like that. So that cannot be understated. Not to mention, I mentioned how in Generation 6 onward, Pokemon definitely decided to take the game in a much easier, more kid-friendly direction. Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 are legitimately tough. Like, they're actually very challenging Pokemon games. I did a Nuzlocke of Black 2 and White 2 on my own time, and by gym probably 5 or 6, it just turned into a casual playthrough because I was getting my butt handed to me on a silver platter. Now, trying to do my first playthrough of a game as a Nuzlocke is going to be tough because you can't plan for what you know is coming up. So that was I was kind of at a disadvantage there, but the game is legitimately hard. When I did, you know, kind of switch directions and pivot to it just being a normal playthrough, I still struggled on like late game bosses like the champion and all that. It's tough. Ghetsis doesn't mess around in that game. Pretty wild. I am going to put Black and White slightly above it, only because I have a lot of nostalgia for that game and played the crap out of it. Black and White, I don't have that much to say about it. It's just, to me, it's like the most, even though I think statistically it's in the upper half, Black and White feels like the most mid Pokemon game to me. Now, a lot of people swear by Black and White. I have never really cared about stories at all in Pokemon games. Pokemon has always been the type of game and series that I like to make my own story in my head kind of thing. So I like the games to be kind of vague and open-ended with a story. Just have like a general structure and let me create the storylines in my head as I'm playing out the game. I guess that might be like my imagination and creativity speaking, but I've never really been into stories in Pokemon games. Pokemon Black and White is the most story-driven Pokemon game. And I'd say Pokemon Black and White easily has the best story in Pokemon. I can't think of any other main series Pokemon game. I'm intentionally emphasizing main series. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Pretty much pick any of them, but Explorers of Sky specifically is one of my top 2 favorite video game stories of all time, let alone Pokemon. But as far as mainline Pokemon games, Black and White I would say has the best stories, and I will give it props for that, and I'll nod to that. Problem is, I just never really care about stories in Pokemon games, so I don't really value that so much that the story is pretty good in that game. Because I don't care about story in Pokemon games. I like to make up my own story, my own adventure. That being said, Black and White just kind of does some weird things. The character models kind of move, but they're also like really pixely for some reason, and that was really jarring to me even as a kid. I remember being at my dad's house and asking him like, why does this new Pokemon game look so pixely when my Pokemon game I had before this in Generation 4? How come, basically I was saying, why do the graphics look worse in the newer Pokemon games than it did in Platinum? And he thought, like, I remember him, like, looking at the S and be like, that does look super pixely. That's weird. He, like, went through, like, the game settings trying to see if, like, there was, like, resolution filters or something. But that was just how the games were made. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It has its own unique look. And they were more, like, alive and vibrant because, like, each part of a Pokemon sprite's body would, like, move and kind of be alive. And that's cool. But I just really hated the pixely look at the time because it didn't feel like a retro pixely. It just felt like kind of almost blurry pixely. A little bit of a nitpick, but it's just kind of weird and jarring for me. The newer Pokemon that they added in this game, at the time, I was not really a fan of. I didn't really care about any of the new Pokemon. Fast forward to present day, some of the Pokemon introduced in Black and White are some of my favorite Pokemon of all time. Namely, Chandelure is probably my favorite Gen 5 Pokemon. Ferrothorn is to this day my favorite tank I've ever had. He was the tank on my competitive teams. All 4 of my Master Ball ranked teams had Ferrothorn on it, believe it or not. Maybe he's a very hated Pokemon for those competitive reasons, but I absolutely love him. Point is, I'd say Black and White is the game I probably feel the most in the middle on, but I still really like it, and I would enjoy playing through Black and White again. I haven't played through Black and White in a long time. I started a ROM hack of White Nuzlocke on my YouTube channel way back in the day and got absolutely clobbered in like 6 or 7 episodes, and that was the end of that series. But I would really like to play through Black and White again to reevaluate them. I definitely know there's a lot of stuff that I felt kind of bored or kind of like, okay, can we get through this in there? But still a good game. Still a good game. Moving along. So I'm looking at the rest of what we have on here. And from, I was going to say, I think there's only 2 S tiers. And I was going to say, maybe there's only 3 S tiers. And I was going to say, maybe there's 4. There's some good stuff on here, man. There's some good stuff on here, man. Okay. Next up. And honestly, the next games I'm about to say. Thanks for the alert, Clovis. I appreciate it. The only poll that matters, how bad is Rambo? I think there's enough ways we can get an answer to that question. Welcome in, Tony. How's it going? I'm currently in the middle of doing a Pokemon games tier list. I'm going from bottom to top, so still kind of in the process. So next, kind of tough. Next in A tier, I'm going to go Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. The 3rd generation of Pokemon is where I started. I kind of started in the middle towards the back half of the 3rd generation. These games came out like when I was like 1 or 2 years old. And so I didn't have Ruby and Sapphire. That wasn't my game growing up. It was like a half step before my time. But my older brothers, my oldest brother had Ruby. My older brother, you know, between me and my oldest brother, had Sapphire. I watched them play those games so much. Pokemon was my first love when it comes to video games. Like, I didn't even play. I was just engrossed in watching them play. Watching my brother, you know, catch Kyogre, or the other one catching Rayquaza. Seeing them battle it out with, you know, Blaziken and Sceptile. It's just so cool. I just thought these games were so cool. Or Swampert. Generation 3 was so cool. I'll never forget, like, seeing the first time I saw the animation of them, like, going up a waterfall and thinking that was just, like, the most mind-blowing thing ever. Like, whoa! He's going up this giant waterfall on his Kyogre, on his Wailord. Just so cool. Just so cool. It blew my mind, and I was, like, 2 or 3 years old. That being said, this is when it really became apparent. It was maybe apparent in Gen 2, but honestly, I couldn't really tell you that many things that Crystal did to set itself apart from Silver and Gold. I know there is probably a lot of things. Like I said, these games had their time way before I was even born, so I wasn't really engrossed at all in Gen 2, so I don't have that much knowledge, especially when I haven't really been deep into Pokemon in a couple years, so I don't have a lot of fresh knowledge on Crystal. But to me, it feels like Generation 3 is really when there became a very severe and noticeable difference in quality between the initial split release and the combined kind of definitive version of that generation's game. That being said, Emerald, which we'll get to, is so much better than both Ruby and Sapphire, but Ruby and Sapphire kind of set the baseline and are still great games. It's really tough for me, especially because I'm such a Gen 4 stan, but I actually was pretty close to putting Diamond and Pearl below Ruby and Sapphire, but next I'm going to go Diamond and Pearl. I am the biggest Gen 4 stan. Gen 4 was my generation. I started Pokemon in Gen 3, but Gen 4 was that was just when my love for Pokemon was the strongest. That was the most I played Pokemon. I never actually owned a copy of Diamond or Pearl to my own name. My brother had Diamond and one of my friends had Pearl. So I did a playthrough on my friend's Pearl on his DS. And then I ended up, with his permission, resetting my brother's Pokemon Diamond at one point during my childhood and playing through that. And this was the first time I experienced a new generation of Pokemon. I'll never forget seeing the new starters being announced for the first time. This girl I knew had a Piplup plushie before the games even came out, because they were already selling merch, and I just remember seeing that and be like, whoa, it's a new Pokemon. That had Pokemon games on the Wii, Pokemon Rumble, Pokemon Ranch. If y'all know about Pokemon Ranch was so fun. It was this dumb little game where you're on a farm, an actual farm, a red barn. There's some cowgirl talking to you, and you just have this giant fenced-in pasture. And every day that you signed into the game, it was at midnight, which for me was at 11 p.m. because of time zones. You would log onto the game, and the farmer girl would bring a random Pokemon to the ranch. And you would just see what you would get. Now, eventually you could, transfer Pokemon from your Diamond and Pearl games into the Pokemon Ranch. So that was kind of busted. But it was just so fun to every day log into Pokemon Ranch to see what Pokemon you got to come to your farm that day. Really weird tangent about Pokemon Ranch, but I'm just talking about Generation 4 in general. Diamond and Pearl started it all, and at the time when they came out was so cool, but same issue as Ruby and Sapphire. I will never play through, unless it's for a specific challenge. I'm not going to say never, but right now today, thinking in my head, I have no reason in my head to want to play through Ruby and Sapphire again. That's the exact same way I feel about Diamond and Pearl, and that's because they are just so dominated. Everything is better about their sequels that came next to kind of combine the good things of both. But we'll get there, because we're definitely not quite there yet. Next. Kind of tough, actually. A little bit tough, actually. A little bit tough. Between two. Not that tough, though. Tough, but not that tough. Next, I'm going with Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. The first video game I ever owned. Not just first Pokemon game, the first video game that was ever mine, Kyrogus's, was Pokemon Fire Red on my 3rd birthday. Like I said, I as a very small child, watched my brothers play Pokemon on their Game Boys. My brother had a blue Game Boy that he would play Sapphire on. My other brother, I believe, had a silver Game Boy that he would play Ruby and Emerald on. All I wanted in the entire world at the time was Pokemon Fire Red on a red Game Boy. I'd seen, Austin, my brother, had told me about. They were making, a Fire Red and Leaf Green version, and I just wanted a red DS. Red has always been my color. I just wanted a red DS with Pokemon Fire Red. That was all I wanted. And my little brother was born the day before my 3rd birthday, and I just remember, and a lot of people don't have this many memories of, their toddler years, but, I do have, honestly, a lot of memories around that time. I was having a little brother being born, so there's just a lot of stuff that's sticking out in my mind. But I remember sitting in the kitchen, not being sad, but it was my birthday, and everyone was kind of focused on this newborn baby that had been born the day before. And I just remember kind of sitting in the kitchen, just kind of feeling a little lonely. And I'll never forget my grandpa walking into the kitchen, and out from behind pulls out a present, and it was a red Game Boy Advance with Pokemon Fire Red. and my life was never the same. The only reason you are watching this streamer today is because of that day and that gift. Pokemon Fire Red changed my life. I've never, like, that's where I fell in love with video games, was this game right here. It kind of cuts it off, but you see Charizard on the right side there. You see old Charizard. Not even my favorite Pokemon by a long shot. But Pokemon Fire Red changed my life. First video game I ever owned. I played the absolute crap out of it. I almost still remember my team in that game. My brother got Leaf Green around the same time, so he traded with me to let me get, so I could have all 3 starters. Like, he just reset his game a couple times to trade the starters onto my team. So I had all 3 starters: Blastoise, Charizard, Venusaur. And then I swapped Pokemon out at times. I know I had Zapdos on my final team. I eventually got Mewtwo, but I don't really count that. I did have Gyarados, so my oldest love was there from the very beginning. I might have swapped him out at some point, though. I had a Hypno for a long time for some reason. I just thought Drowsy was hilarious. It's kind of scary because, you know, the lore of Hypno is he ends up stealing kids. But for some reason, I thought Drowsy and Hypno were hilarious. So I had them on my team for a while. I'll never forget catching Mewtwo for the first time. Kind of a long tangent. Y'all, anyone who knows Pokemon knows the term Gen 1er, which are the people that played the original Pokemon games in Gen 1, you know, Pokemon Red and Blue, and just swear by it and think it's the best. I think those people are kind of wild. But the feeling that those people got with Pokemon Fire Red, or with Pokemon Red and Blue, I know I got that feeling with Fire Red and Leaf Green. I've played both, but Fire Red was my game. And it's what, like, I knew I loved Pokemon. Like, I knew I thought it was so cool playing it on my, like, brother's Game Boys, but actually getting my own game, going through my own playthrough at the super young age of 3 on Pokemon Fire Red, my first ever Pokemon being Squirtle, like, that's what it was. That's my very core of gaming started there. And I still love playing through those games. If it's only nostalgia or because it has all the most recognizable Pokemon and all that, there are some tedious things that I don't really like about Kanto in the first gen structure. That's just a Gen 1 remake. But no other game for me could be the first Pokemon game or the first game that was mine, you know? It's not the first time I played a video game, but it was the first video game that was specifically mine. Like, this is my game. And yeah, so it'll always have a special place in my heart. But dang, I almost want to put this next one below it after talking about Fire Red and how much I love it, and thinking about what I would go back and play first. Yeah, so what I just said, Pokemon Fire Red, I said is hard, but not that hard. I still stand by that, but I'm flipping it. Next is Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I definitely prefer Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire over the original Ruby and Sapphire. I had so much fun with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I talked about X and Y, and so X and Y, all the stuff I said about X and Y applies to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, except it was so much more fun. Is it because it had a nostalgic and familiar coat of paint? Maybe. But never forget, the first Pokemon the first setting of Pokemon I ever saw was Hoenn in Ruby and Sapphire. It wasn't my game. I didn't play it. I mean, I played through it a little bit, but like, I watched my brothers play. My first experience with Pokemon was watching a Hoenn in Ruby and Sapphire. And seeing that remade in 3D was just the coolest thing to me. Just the absolute coolest thing to me. And my most played Pokemon games, a lot of them are the ones that are yet to come. But of the ones that are on here so far, my most played games are Sword and Shield, so I guess Pokemon Sword, Pokemon Fire Red, and Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. Of all the games we talk about so far, are my 3 most played Pokemon games. I played the absolute snot out of Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. Random little tidbit. Before I got the game, Peanut Butter Gamer, if anyone knows who that YouTuber is, he was like my first favorite YouTuber. Like the first YouTuber I really became like a fan of and kept up with for a long time. He did a playthrough of Alpha Sapphire like right when it came out, a Nuzlocke. And he was not knowledgeable about Pokemon at all. It was really goofy. He made so many bad decisions, but it was the most like entertaining piece of Pokemon content I had seen in my life up to that point. And I got the game before he finished that series, but I'll never forget. And I was young. I was like 12 years old probably. And so I was just kind of in that stage of life where you like find something that you love and you kind of grasp onto it. And I just loved just the essence of what Pokemon was at that time for me. And yeah, so I played so much Alpha Sapphire. That was when I first like kind of really got into competitive Pokemon. I never got good at it. Like I never did anything. Like Sword and Shield was really when I was good into Pokemon competitively. But I like first started trying to EV train and started trying to do Wi-Fi battling and online battling, competitive battling in Alpha Sapphire. But I loved it for so many other reasons. It was just so good. It was all the things that made Ruby and Sapphire good, but just updated in 3D. Nothing was taken away, I don't feel like. Yes, the XP share thing was still there, so that kind of blows. But I think you had the, yeah, at this time you still had the ability to turn it off. So that still made it viable for like Nuzlocke or challenge runs or keeping the game more difficult. Mega Evolution was in there, and they made Megas of all the Gen 3 starters. There was the Primal forms of Growlithe and Kyogre, which Primal forms are pretty much just Mega Evolutions, just kind of a little bit different. May as well just be Megas though. Everything just looked so good. Like I said, it really just felt like Ruby and Sapphire were just improved upon. The Mega Latios and Latias flying around over the region to this day is one of my absolute favorite, like, I don't know if mechanics is the right word, maybe it is, that I've seen in a Pokemon game, is getting to fly on a Pokemon over the region and like land where you want to land. Like, that's one of the coolest things ever. Absolutely in love with that. I cannot believe that has never really come back. That sucks, but I absolutely love that about Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby. The games are just so fun. And I definitely thought they were more challenging than X and Y as well. Yo, Final Latios was so good. I know, bro. That's like, when I think about Alpha Sapphire, that's like the first thing that pops into my head. Like, that's the most like memorable thing for me. It was so good. But also, they had like the Mirage Islands that you could capture like all these legendaries from other games. So awesome. There's just so many great things. For the longest time, Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega, like Alpha Sapphire, I would have considered my second favorite Pokemon game because it was my second most played Pokemon game. I think, like Fire Red, I played a ton as a kid. I don't know if I actually have as many hours in it as Sword and Shield. Maybe. I probably do. So I think Sword and Shield, then Fire Red, then Alpha Sapphire, then who can guess, are like my top 4 most played Pokemon games. I played so much Alpha Sapphire at the time. It was just, I loved it. There was so much I could do with it. The Pokedex was so expansive. Oh, that's also the first time I transferred Pokemon up. So I was able to transfer Pokemon all the way back from like Emerald and Fire Red and Leaf Green up through Generation 4 into Generation 6 Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. And I'll never forget just like having Pokemon from my old games in this 3D version. That was just such a cool feeling for me. You could transfer Pokemon up before then from Gen 3 to Gen 4 and Gen 4 to Gen 5, but I never did it until Gen 6 came out and I brought them up to Gen 6, and it was just the most amazing thing. Just the most amazing thing. But that leaves us down to 3 games, and these are the S tier games. First up, I'm going Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver as the 3rd best Pokemon game of all time. Now, as far as like personal preference, as if I was ranking it by like my favorites, like just how I feel emotionally about the game, I would put it behind Fire Red and Alpha Sapphire. As far as emotionally how I feel about the mainline Pokemon games. But I cannot deny, Heart Gold and Soul Silver is almost objectively the best Pokemon game. Objectively, I think these are the best 3 objectively, like strictly objectively, these are the best 3 Pokemon games of all time, the last 3 here. And I think all 3 of these games have a case to be the best Pokemon game ever. I would probably put Heart Gold at least in the top 2, but it has a case to be the best ever. Either Heart Gold or Soul Silver. These games are amazing. Everything that I said about Generation 2 applies here, but it's just upgraded and done better. And I don't necessarily feel like the remakes always make things better, but I feel like the Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire remakes made Ruby and Sapphire better. I didn't even mention, I am so sorry, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, I did not even mention the Delta episode. It just slipped my mind to even get there. Heart Gold, Soul Silver, we'll get to you in a minute. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire's Delta episode is the single best, like, piece of post-game content in any Pokemon game that I can think of. Someone might argue the Battle Frontier and Emerald, and I hear you. Okay, I need to back up. I just made a huge, bold claim. Because Heart Gold Soul Silver also has the Kanto post-game. So let me retract my previous statement that the best post-game content in any Pokemon game is the Delta episode. But definitely the best story-driven post-game content is the Delta episode of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. It's easily in the top 3 of post-game, like, stories and big things to do. I would prefer it over the Battle Frontier, I think, because you got a whole story centered around Rayquaza, who then gets a Mega Evolution, and then you fly to freaking space to battle Deoxys in space! That's kind of like how you never think, like, Mario in space and Mario Galaxy is, like, this amazing thing, but then you get that in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where you fly into space on Rayquaza to fight Deoxys or capture him, and it's the absolute most amazing thing ever. Alright, I just had to throw that out there. Because I was like, I feel like I didn't say enough about Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and then I remembered that, which is the absolute coolest part of the whole game, and I completely left it out. I apologize for not mentioning that, like, so much sooner, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. That adds to it as well. Dang, it's really close how I feel about these games, because remembering that almost makes me want to move it back up above Fire Red. But I'll leave it how it is. Next, we have Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Spoiler alert, already said it. This game just has it all. The Johto region on its own is so good. It's definitely, I think Johto, it's hard to compare it to the newer gens. Of the first 5 generations, we'll say the first 5 generations, I think Johto is easily the shortest, like, main game playthrough. That's because the post game has, like, almost an entire another Pokemon game tacked onto it. Definitely much shorter, but, like, level-wise, like, if you just go through Johto, if you go through the main game of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, your Pokemon are going to be like level 45 at the end, and in most games it's like 55. It definitely goes by faster and you don't level as much, but that's because in the post game you can go all the way through Kanto. And I know there are a couple of haters out there that say that fact is just overhyped, that it's not that awesome that you can go to Kanto, because all you do is kind of walk through the region and fight all the gym leaders. Those people are crazy. That is still one of the coolest games ever. Everything I said about Generation 2, you get to go back to the entire area of the first game, fight all of these bosses that were in the first game, see all these characters, and cap that off with the hardest enemy in the entire game being your character from the first game at the very end of the hardest area in the entire game. That will never be, like, that's just one of the greatest things you can put into a sequel for a game ever. I already mentioned that for Gen 2. It's done again here in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Match that with the updated graphics. In my opinion, Gen 4 graphics are the absolute peak of Pokemon. Like, Pokemon looked its best in Generation 4, in my opinion. I know I'm a Gen 4 stan, but I truly believe that. The look of Generation 4 is just amazing. It's so colorful. It just looks so good. So good. Heart Gold Soul Silver had that going for him. It's just so fun. I mentioned PBG's Alpha Sapphire Nuzlocke. I want to point out my favorite Pokemon series I've ever watched in my entire life is Shady Penguin's Storm Silver Egglock. Storm Silver is a ROM hack of Pokemon Soul Silver, a ROM hack that I will almost definitely either make a video series or stream doing a Nuzlocke of, because I played the mess out of that ROM hack when I first got a laptop way back when, just because the Storm Silver Egglock from Shady Penguin was so good. Shady Penguin, to this day, he's one of my favorite content creators ever. Definitely my favorite, like, Pokemon person ever that I can think of. But that makes me love this game so much, too. It's just, like, for those of you who watch the Renegade Platinum Nuzlocke series, Storm Silver is that of Soul Silver. But moving back to the actual games themselves, it just has so much content. I think Heart Gold and Soul Silver have the most content of any Pokemon game. Black and White 2, like, I'm thinking about what games just have the most content. The top 4, I think easily, golly, it's so difficult. It's so difficult to compare some of these. The 5 games with the most content, in no particular order: Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, Black and White 2, Emerald, and Platinum. I think those are the 5 Pokemon games with the most content. And Heart Gold, Soul Silver might be the most out of all of them. You've got the roaming legendaries. You've got the massive, massive post game. Not to mention the Elite Four gets upgraded at the end of that too. You've got just a lot of legendaries to get. I think the Heart Gold and Soul Silver is almost has the highest number of catchable Pokemon in game compared to a lot of the others. Platinum might be higher. Maybe. It's just so good. It's so good. I feel like I said a lot of general things about Heart Gold and Soul Silver. It really can't be stated enough. Anyone who's played Heart Gold and Soul Silver knows what I'm talking about and why it's so amazing. Am I missing much in chat? You want to talk about the basketball game? This looks like. Well, let's get to our top 2. Pokemon Emerald and Pokemon Platinum. Everyone knows what my favorite is. So, it cannot... Don't understate what I'm about to say. Everyone knows what my favorite Pokemon game is. So when I say Pokemon Emerald is so freaking close, like actually, to Pokemon Platinum, I actually for a few seconds considered putting Emerald at number 1. It's that good. Everyone knows Platinum is my favorite. Pokemon Emerald is just perfect. Have you seen those like YouTube shorts that they make where they have like the reaction clips to rate things? Like you've got Dwayne The Rock Johnson saying it's the biggest piece of dog crap. Or you got EDP being like, I mean, it's alright. Or you got Moist Critical going, woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo! You've got the Homelander saying, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything down to the last minute detail. Perfect. That's Pokemon Emerald. Pokemon Emerald is a perfect Pokemon game. It literally cannot be stated enough. Pokemon Emerald is perfect. I literally cannot think of a single negative thing to say about Pokemon Emerald. The only thing, like trying to dog on the game, the only thing I don't like about Pokemon Emerald when I go back to play it is there not being a physical special split. Talking about the movesets. Now we're getting into like nitty gritty of the mechanics. Up through until Generation 4, each type determined if a move is physical or special. So like all fire types were special attacks. All fighting attacks were physical attacks. Although most fighting attacks are physical attacks anyways. But you get what I'm saying. There was no physical special split. The only thing that irritates me when I go back and play Pokemon Emerald is that there's no physical special split. Pokemon Emerald is just perfect. First of all, Rayquaza is probably the coolest Pokemon of all time. It's not my favorite, but it's up there. It might be my favorite legendary. I think it is my favorite legendary, actually. Now that I say that, I think Rayquaza is definitely my favorite legendary. Rayquaza's on the box. Rayquaza's the main Pokemon. You got the whole, like, cinematic... I don't remember a cutscene ever being in a Pokemon game until Pokemon Emerald has the coolest cutscene maybe in any video game ever. When you got Rayquaza fly out of the freaking sky to literally give a spanking to both Kyogre and Groudon. The box cover Pokemon from the previous 2 games that were just broken and overpowered in a cutscene are just both bitch slapped by Rayquaza 1v2. So awesome. So awesome. Real alpha males skip all cutscenes. First of all, cringe. Second of all, I would never skip this cutscene in a million years. Good, Lance. Command Ramble. You never knew that about the physical special split? Yeah, that started in Generation 4. So that's the only thing I get annoyed about at when I play Pokemon Emerald is that's like, bro, I'm fighting this freaking, just whatever. I'm fighting this Tentacruel that has a lot of special defense, and I have this lightning attack. I have like Thunder Punch, and if it was physical, I would be bodying this thing. I don't know, that type of thing. You get what I'm saying? So that's a little bit annoying, just like mechanically. I literally, it's just perfect. Pokemon Emerald is perfect. I wish I had more specific things to say in this moment. It's just the best of the Hoenn region. It combines, okay, I gotta mention this. It combines both evil teams. So in most Pokemon games, there's only one evil team that's the same in both of the split versions. Ruby and Sapphire split them to Team Magma and Team Aqua. In Pokemon Emerald, both of their storylines happen at the same time. So not only do you have Pokemon Emerald where you get like Rayquaza as like the main big legendary, but you also combine the storylines of both Ruby and Sapphire into one game, You fight both of the different evil teams. You get just twice the bosses, twice the story, twice the enemies to fight. It's just so good. Oh, it's so good. The only thing I will say, like, I think Steven from Ruby and Sapphire works a little bit better as a champion compared to Wallace, who's just the 8th gym leader in Ruby and Sapphire. And he's like a water type user, so like the champion just kind of being a water type user is kind of weird in Emerald. Especially when there's already a water type gym leader in that game. So it's like, of the last 6 bosses in the game, the 8th gym and the champion are both like a water type boss, which is kind of weird. Yeah, but I mean, Steven's still a secret boss to, or at least a character to find. I don't remember if you fight him in Emerald, so that's cool. I'm getting a little bit off topic. There's a couple of like things that are kind of like, I don't know if they had to do that in Emerald, but like it is the closest thing to perfect that a Pokemon game can get. Pokemon Emerald is perfect in every sense of the word that matters. Pokemon Emerald is perfect. There's no denying it. But my favorite Pokemon game of all time, and in my opinion, the best Pokemon game of all time, is Pokemon Platinum. Now, objectively, Pokemon Emerald might be better. That's why I considered putting it above Platinum for a second. But even if I was being objective, Pokemon Platinum is right up there neck and neck with Emerald. Now, the problems with Pokemon Platinum are kind of just the problems with Generation 4 in general. The games move really slow. It takes a long time, like, for animations to play out. It takes a long time for the health bars to go down. Generation 3 did not have that problem. It was quick and snappy. So Pokemon Platinum, that is a little bit of a annoyance. Beyond that, like, other than the game's kind of being slow, the game does feel kind of long compared to a lot of the other Pokemon games. It's just so good. This was my peak. My most played Pokemon game, not even close, is Pokemon Platinum. My original Pokemon Platinum cartridge has like 800 hours on it. I played through, my first piece of content I ever freaking made in Pokemon was my Pokemon Renegade Platinum Nuzlocke series. I mentioned it, I think, at the beginning of this segment. This is kind of going for a long time, so I almost don't even remember what the frick I said. But it's just, Pokemon Platinum is everything to me, man. It's just everything. Of, like, the game, there are like 3 games I would say changed my life. And Pokemon Platinum might have been the most impactful of all of them. Maybe. Maybe. It's just a special game to me. The whole Distortion World scene is like the pinnacle, like, peak of Pokemon to me. Like, it's just so amazing. Cynthia is easily, in my opinion, the best, coolest champion in any of the Pokemon games. Just the best final boss. She is amazing. She's got her signature ace Garchomp, which at the time, Garchomp at the time was just, he's not a legendary Pokemon, but just legendary. Like, Garchomp in Generation 4 was the, like, just strongest, best, most menacing Pokemon ever. And when you walk in to fight Cynthia with her level 79, I don't know, it's after she gets upgraded, but the level 79 Garchomp in Cynthia's final form is just amazing. There's so many good things about the game. I've always loved the mountainy feel of it. Both of Generation 3 and 4, I mean, Generation 5 centers the most on dragons. Generation 4, with just the matter, space, time themes, it just had a very epic, important feel to it. Arceus being the god of Pokemon. Like, it just felt so, like, mythical. The snowy, kind of wintry, cold feel, kind of like a Skyrim vibe, honestly, with, like, the mountains and the wintry feel. It just has such, like, an epic feeling to it. Platinum does. And it's just, the vibe of Platinum is just everything I love about Pokemon. And it's just a special game to me. It's one of my top favorite games of all time that will never change. No matter how my feelings about Pokemon as a company or a franchise or how the games become, nothing will ever change my just soul bond to Pokemon Platinum. That's my tier list of all of the Pokemon games. It was just going to be Generations, and I didn't plan for it to go this long. This has been going on for a very long time. But that's my tier list of Pokemon, every single mainline game. So from the worst to the best, you know, give or take a couple of spots I might flip quickly, but I would say at the bottom is Sun and Moon easily for me. I would put probably Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon next, followed by Scarlet and Violet, which are not pictured here. Then I'd probably say Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which I didn't feel like I had it that low, but it kind of is what it is, followed by X and Y, then Sword and Shield. And then we get into all the OG games that I don't really have that much of a strong connection to because I went back to play them a lot. Like, all of them I had to go back and play. I didn't play them as a child, except I kind of played Pokemon Yellow as a child, which I say is my favorite, but it actually has nothing to do with nostalgia. But I don't really like to replay the older games that much, other than I do enjoy playing Pokemon Yellow. But I have so much respect for the baseline that all these games set. Then Pokemon Yellow, then Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, and Pokemon Black and White. I feel very close on these games. The only reason I put Black and White above Black and White 2 is because I have a lot more nostalgia for Black and White, because I didn't play Black 2 and White 2 until I went back to play them when I was older. But they're so good. Can't underestimate Black 2 and White 2. They're great games as well. Then we get into our A tier, where we have the Golden Age of Pokemon, which is pretty much just Gens 3 and 4. I mean, we have a Gen 6, but it's a Gen 3 remake. Generations 3 and 4 is just the pinnacle, like, peak, highest point of Pokemon. It's when it was just at its best. Ruby and Sapphire and Diamond and Pearl, I believe, have their issues, but they are still fantastic A-tier games. And then I wish there was like an A.5, like sub-S tier, where I would put Alpha Sapphire, Omega Ruby, and Leaf Green and Fire Red. Games are so good, but there is a very clear trinity of perfect Pokemon games. Perfect might not be the right word, but easily, not even close to me, the best 3 Pokemon games are Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which I still believe is like a step below the top 2. But Pokemon Emerald and Pokemon Platinum are just perfection. Yes, they have a couple of things that are technically not that good, but just as close as you can get to perfection in a Pokemon game, and for me, a video game, is Pokemon Emerald and Pokemon Platinum. That's my Pokemon games tier list. Let me know in chat if you feel like typing something, or let me know in the comments if you're watching the YouTube video what you think of this list. What's your list? If Pokemon Sun and Moon is your favorite game, like I mentioned, I don't lose any respect for you. It's just my personal opinion, but I would love to hear what you guys think. What's up, Deadly Mouse with the Pog? Wampa Source with the claps and the GG. How's it going, Wampa? Welcome in. Virilix! I'm so glad you walked in on this, because I have, like, the most I've ever, like, my biggest Pokemon friend. I mean, you're just my best friend in general growing up, of course, but I've never had a friend that I've talked about Pokemon with like I have with you. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire OP, bro. I talked this stream's ear off talking about Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I almost want to put like add a row above and put here like sub S tier, like it's just below. Wait, whoops. Like it's just below. And this would be these 2 games. And I literally, if you were watching how I did the list, I went back and forth on these 2 games so much. These are so interchangeable. It's really hard for me to put one above the other. Fire Red was just my first video game ever, so I have to give it a slight edge, I think. But yeah. X and Y and Auras are my favorite, but those are my first games. I never played Gen 3 or 4. Yeah. It looks low here, but if you go back and watch the VOD, which I'll obviously clip this out for the YouTube channel. I'll send you like a timestamp when I talk about X and Y, Lance. But I really had very little negative to say about X and Y. I give a lot more respect to X and Y than I feel like most people do. Oh, you haven't played Gen 5 either? Yeah. I said this about Gen 5. Now that the list is complete, it is pretty much in the middle, but I said Gen 5 is like the most like mid. No, I didn't say mid in like the urban way of saying mid, but it's just like the most in the middle Pokemon game for me. It has so much good about it and so much that I really don't like about it. It's just right in the middle for me. But I have a lot of respect for it. Alright, gamers, now we're going to do a tier list of every Generation 8 Pokemon. I actually have wanted to rank the Generation 8 Pokemon for a while. It's just kind of something I thought of one time that sounded fun back when Generation 8 was new. Now it's, you know, obsolete because Generation 9 is out, but I haven't played those games yet. But I'm going to do a tier list of all the Generation 8 Pokemon from F tier all the way up to S tier. So here we go. Should I go through in order and just do each one, or should I try to do ascending? We'll just go each one. Frick. Oh no. Oh no. I'm about to get exposed. I don't know enough Pokemon names. Hold on. Hold on. I don't know all these Pokemon's names. I'm about to get flamed if I don't pull up Google quick. If I don't pull up Google quick. I'm about to get so exposed. I know most of these names, but not enough. I don't know like any of these. List of Pokemon by Galar Pokedex number. Okay. Grookey. I knew Grookey, but I didn't know Thwacky, and then I knew Rillaboom. Okay, Grookey. Grookey's solid. Grookey's definitely a solid Pokemon. I'm going B tier right off the top of the dome piece. Next up is Thwacky. Thwacky, I feel like, is a step down compared to the rest of the evolution line. So Thwacky is getting a C tier. Rillaboom, either B or A. Rillaboom's either B or A. Rillaboom is solid as well. Grookey's way cuter, but I think Rillaboom has a more fleshed out design that I like. I'm gonna go A for now. I might bump that down. My favorite starter of Generation 8 is Scorbunny. Scorbunny's going A. I'm gonna move Rillaboom down to B. But I do think I like it more than Grookey. Scorbunny is just awesome. Now, unfortunately, that's the most I can say for Scorbunny's line, because I think the other two Pokemon designs look terrible. Now, I'm not going strictly on Pokemon designs, but, you know. Cinderace specifically. Maybe I will just do it off design. No, I won't do it just off design. Cinderace specifically just looks so bad. Cinderace was my starter, and I use Cinderace a lot, but he just looks so bad. He's supposed to be like a soccer player, which is fine. And he's a cool concept. A fire bunny that's fast, uses its legs. Super awesome. I love the idea. Why does he look so stupid? For that reason, he's going B tier. He's a cool Pokemon. I like everything about the Pokemon, like, on paper. But he just looks so lame. And then Raboot, didn't know its name, is also going to go B tier. Because it looks a lot cooler than Cinderace, but it's the weird, awkward mid-stage, you know. Next up is Sobble. Sobble is hilarious. Lice, the only playthrough I think she's ever done of like a real video game was she played through Pokemon Sword on my Switch, and her starter was Sobble named Sally. She had the water starter named Sally. Because of that, I actually really like Sobble and its line. So I'm gonna go A tier for Sobble. The weird emo mid-stage of Drizzile. Drizzile is kind of a cool name. C tier though. And the Inteleon, how Cinderace lame and in the same tier as Rillaboom? Because he looks so stupid! He's the stupidest looking Pokemon ever. If he looked anywhere slightly cooler than he does, I would have him A tier, but he just looks so dumb. I can't handle it. I'll never forget evolving to Cinderace for the first time and being like almost puking. What the frick am I looking at? Oh, how is he not below Rillaboom? Well, because I like Cinderace as like a Pokemon. That's what I was saying. I really like Cinderace on paper a ton. I'm not just going off design. This is just as a whole for every factor considered what I think of them. Now, some Pokemon I don't really have any factors to consider because the only opinion I have on them is their design. But Rillaboom, I don't really care for as a Pokemon. I almost had Rillaboom. It's just whatever. I like Cinderace a lot more as a Pokemon, but Rillaboom definitely looks better. But all the factors combined, they kind of level out for me. Inteleon, I didn't think I'd say this. I think Rillaboom is the best looking of the final evolution starter Pokemon. But I'm going to put Inteleon in A because I think on paper, I like Cinderace the most. I think design-wise, I like Rillaboom the most. I don't think Inteleon takes the cake in either of those two categories, but I think it balances it enough that as a whole, I think I'd put higher. I think that's true. Might be an interesting take. Lance is saying, that usually means he does not agree, but, you know, it is what it is. Now, this is where we're about to get crazy. I almost want to throw... I'm going to get crazy for a second. We might revisit this. I'm going to throw Scorbunny all the way up to S tier for now. And next to him, I'm putting Skwovet. Skwovet is one of my favorite Pokemon designs ever. Bro, the chubby little cheeks. It's got to be one of the cutest Pokemon. It might be the cutest Pokemon in my opinion. Skwovet is adorable. That being freaking said, mother trucking Greedent gotta be the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. F tier. Greedent is so ugly. Also, I'm deleting E tier because it's just overkill. We just need S, A, B, C, D, F. Greedent is so ugly, bro. Squirtle is the cutest thing ever, and then evolves into this just eyesore. Just this blister of a Pokemon to look at. Just so bad. That Pokemon is me in April of 2021. It's crazy how a Pokemon can go from... I know that's like the joke, is that it goes from this adorable little thing to just this freaking just disgusting to look at monster. But even if that is the point and that's intentional, I don't like it. Next we've got the regional bird line. Also, these are not in perfect Pokedex number order, so I'm kind of having to scroll around a bit. Where the frick is this Pokemon? Holy crap, where is it? Because I don't know the names. I don't know the names. Help me. Help me, game. Come on, throw me a bone. Well, I know one of them, of course. Rookidee, that's what it's called. Cheeked up, but on the face. Rookidee is pretty decent, actually. I actually am a fan of this bird trio. One of them is far and away the best. Not even close. I really like this whole line. Rookidee, Corvisquire, Corviknight are just an awesome line.
Hello there.
Hello there. What's up, Wampa? Welcome back, good sir. Someone dropped this man a General Kenobi to complete the combo. I'm gonna give Rookidee a solid B tier. I'm gonna give the same to Corvisquire. I almost want to throw them in A. I almost will. I'm gonna put them in A. I'm gonna put both of them in A. I like them both in these 4 starters sitting in B tier. Yeah, I really like them. But far and away, the best out of all the ones we've rated up to this point, Corviknight is the best. Corviknight is an S tier Pokemon. One of my favorite Pokemon ever made, came out of Generation 8. And you know, I rarely feel like the newest games give me Pokemon that I absolutely love. Corviknight is just elite. Corviknight is so amazing. Rambo just DM'd me on Instagram, I absolutely hate Pokemon. Why? Just why? What's the point of even saying that? Why are you being such a party pooper? You know what I say to that, Rambo? You know what I have to say about that, Rambo? Just taking a fat old steaming hot dump on the content I'm currently producing? See ya. Out of the park. Boom! He's gone! Out of there! You beat me to it. Now let's get back to the positivity we like here in Kyronia. What's next here? What are these freaking bugs called? Blipbug. Where the frick isn't Chargebug a thing on here? Blipbug is absolutely disgusting to look at. F tier. Hate it. Looks stupid. Nothing to say. Dottler and Orbeetle. Dottler. He's kind of goofy. I'll put him in C, and then Orbeetle, I'll go D. But I'm not really a fan of these bugs. I'm not usually a massive fan of many bug Pokemon, but these are just particularly bad. Next, we've got the Fox Pokemon. Nickit and Thievul. It's just... They're both C tier. There's just not really anything special going on here. They look okay, but just nothing wild. Nothing that really tickles my fancy, you know? You actually really like the Ladybug Pokemon? Huh. I mean, I don't, like, hate it. It's definitely D tier for me, though. It just looks whack to me. Like, having the whole body of the Ladybug be the head just is, like, kind of jarring for me to look at. That's just me personally, though. My opinion's not a fact. It's just my opinion. What the frick is this called? One of them is... Oh gosh, oh no, I don't know what Pokemon are called. I'm gonna get made fun of on the internet. I'm gonna be called a fake Pokemon fan. Son of a gun. Son of a gun. What the balls is the names of these Pokemon? I should know the evolved one, because it was in Pokemon. It was in Pokemon. Oh my gosh, my brain is just imploding on itself. I can't remember anything. Pokemon Unite. It was in Pokemon Unite. And I can't remember what it's called. I'm gonna be made fun of on the internet. I'm sorry, I don't remember what it's called. I can't find it. I'm literally looking everywhere in the Pokedex for it. I can't find it. I'm sorry. I'm a fake fan. I'm a casual. I used to be a diehard Pokemon fan, but now I'm just a casual. Bro, it's not listed in this Pokedex anywhere. Come on. Eldegoss and Gossifleur. I did not know Gossifleur. I knew Eldegoss. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Gossifleur, D tier. Looks stupid. Eldegoss. C. Sorry. I can't do any more for you. C tier. Okay. Now let's get to some good ones. Wooloo. That is what it's called, right? It is Wooloo. I'm not tripping. Yeah, Wooloo. Wooloo is awesome. I'm giving Wooloo an S tier. Wooloo is so good. Now, it's definitely my least favorite of the other S tiers so far. Corviknight is in a league of its own. I honestly maybe should rank everything down a hair. But well, this is fine. Wooloo is an awesome, cute little sheep Pokemon. I really like Wooloo. Then you got Dubwool, which is fine. I'm going B tier for Dubwool. But I really, really like Wooloo. Next we've got Choodle and I believe not Druddigon. No, not Druddigon. Dreadnought? Is it Dreadnought? Is it Dreadnought? It is Dreadnought. Choodle and Dreadnought. Choodle kind of sucks, to be honest. Choodle TBH gets a C. Dreadnought is dope though. It's going to the top of A tier. Inteleon is so lame. You're kind of right. You're kind of right. Not lame. I really don't like any of the final evolution starters. I will drop Inteleon to B. I was trying to be nice. Yeah, it does have to be B. I don't like any of them. Cinderace is my Cinderace would be so awesome if he didn't just look so dumb. Gosh. Rillaboom looks the best. Cinderace is my favorite on paper. I was trying to be nice to Inteleon and say because it's kind of balanced in those areas, it makes it better, but it kind of just puts it on the exact same level because it doesn't do anything good. Just a skinny lizard. It's got like the sniper thing though. Like it has like a sniper with its water gun hands, which I think is pretty cool. It's a cool concept. I will drop it a B though. But yeah. Dreadnought is awesome. Such a cool little turtle Pokemon. I mean, I know we already have a water turtle Pokemon, but it's fine. Next, we've got Yamper and Boltund. I actually really like these Pokemon as well. I almost want to put both in A tier. Yamper is so cute. Yamper is just the goodest little dog, little pupper. Yamper gets A. Boltund is also a great dog Pokemon. I'll put it at the top of B, though. It's a B+. The rest of these fools are mostly B. Maybe even B-. But we'll give Boltund a B+. Don't get it twisted. Next, we have the Rock and Fire Pokemon. I really like these as well. Frick. What are you called again? Oh, frick. Son of a gun. I can't remember new Pokemon names. I'm sorry, I have too much information in my brain. It just does not compute. And my brain is overloaded with Pokemon information. I'm about to get clowned. The clock is ticking. Where the frick are they? Gosh, there's so many old Pokemon in the Pokedex. Why doesn't it just show me only the new Pokemon? And I just closed the tab, guys. I'm collapsing in on myself. Can I find a list that's just the newly added Pokemon? Is that so difficult? Oh my gosh, I think I found a list that's just the newly added Pokemon. Why was this so difficult to find? Okay, Roly-Coly. These Pokemon are actually pretty cool. I love fire types. Rock and Fire is cool. Roly-Coly, I'm giving A. Carkol, though, low B. That's a B- Pokemon. It is not cool. But then you've got Coalossal. Coalossal is dope. Coalossal is an A tier. Might be the highest A tier so far. I'm going to put it right below Dreadnought, because Dreadnought is just awesome to me. Coalossal's dope, though. Next up, we've got Applin. The Apple Dragon Pokemon. I'm not going to lie. These are kind of whack. These are pretty whack, TBH. But I have a soft spot for dragons. Flapple, my bad. I'll give you a B-. Or that's Applin, my bad. But Flapple, not Fapple, is actually, it looks dragon. I just don't, how does an apple dragon come to mind? How does that even come to fruition? Who comes up with, I got it! Apple dragon. Who has that idea? And I don't know if the obscurity of the idea makes me like it more or like it less. Flapple, I'll also give a B, and then I'm dropping Appleton to C. It's just an apple pie dragon somehow. I don't know, I don't really get it. Next, we've got Silicobra, the rattlesnake gun Pokemon. Just a shotgun. Silicobra, I'm gonna give a C tier. But Sandaconda, my Sandaconda don't want none unless you got guns, hun. Sandaconda's pretty cool. Is it quite A tier? I think it's another B plus Pokemon. I'm gonna put it right under Bolton. Next, we've got just the most sorry excuse for a Pokemon. I hate Cramorant for so many reasons. It's annoying competitively, and it just looks so freaking dumb. Cramorant, D minus. Hate Cramorant. Next, we've got another couple of cool Pokemon. Arrokuda. I'm gonna go B tier, a lower B tier, but a B tier nonetheless. But Barraskewda, sorry, is cool. Barraskewda is cool. Barraskewda, I'm going A tier. And I'm actually gonna bump up some of these Pokemon. Boltund, Sandaconda, and Raboot. I'm throwing them up to A minus tier to split up our tiers a little bit. Next, we got some pretty cool Pokemon coming up again. Toxel. Toxel, the first form, I'm going to give a B. I'm also going to give a B to the blue Toxtricity form. Just don't really care about it that much. But the purple and gold Toxtricity looks so awesome. A plus, maybe S tier. Maybe S tier. Chat, what do we think? Is this Toxtricity form A plus or is it S? Let me get some feedback. I'm gonna go A plus for now, but I might bump it up here in a bit. Next, we've got Sizzlepede and Centiskorch. Sizzlepede, I'm gonna go C tier. It's fine. Centiskorch, I'm gonna go high B tier. That's a B plus, solid B plus Pokemon. Next, we've got Clobbopus and Griplocked. Clobbopus, I feel like there's a joke to be made there, but I just can't think of it. It looks pretty dumb to me. I'm gonna go D tier. But Graplocked is cool. Graplocked is a B plus Pokemon as well. I like Graplocked. I'll put it right there. Next, we got the Teacup Pokemon. Sinistea and Poltegeist. I actually love those names. They're so hilarious. I'm gonna give both of them B tier, though. Not necessarily the lowest B minus tier. Well, probably. But that's where we're gonna put it. Next, we've got Hatenna, Hatterene, and Hatterene. And I don't really vibe with these, like, hardly at all. I'll give B tier to Hatterene because it looks kind of cute. D tier to Hatterene. Or is that? Yeah, Hatterene. Because it just looks, eh. It just looks, eh. I'll give it a low C tier. Hatterene is so weird. It's just got no arms or legs. It's just, like, standing there. D tier. Why does it... C minus, whatever. C minus. Why does it have no arms or legs? It's just like... It's this little... Just statue. I don't get it. Okay, now we're getting to some goated ones. I love this line. Impidim, Morgrem, and Grimmsnarl. Impidim, A Pokemon. It's literally just a little goblin. Morgrem is in the same boat. It's like this emo little goblin. Dark Fairy type is such a cool combination. I love them. But Grimmsnarl is S tier. He's definitely, of all the Pokemon we've listed, Grimmsnarl is my absolute favorite, except probably Corviknight. I love them both, though. Grimmsnarl is just a troll, just like a dark elf goblin. So awesome. Gosh, I might have to make a sub S tier again, because these two are so far and away the best so far. Corviknight and Grimmsnarl. Moving on, we've got Obstagoon. Obstagoon by itself? I guess because Zigzagoon and Linoon technically were already Pokemon, but they had new forms. Oh well. Obstagoon is fine. Obstagoon's B tier. Obstagoon's fine. Then we've got the new version of Persian, or I think this one's technically called It's Berserker. Berserker C tier. It's fun. It's like a metal beard. It's like steel type for some reason. I don't really get it. Cursola is a ghost version of Corsola. I don't like it. Low D tier. Not quite as bad as Cramorant or whatever, but Cursola sucks. Mr. Rime. I vibe with Mr. Rime, actually. I think Mr. Rime is a good time. I just noticed there's no Sirfetch'd on here. Where the frack is Sirfetch'd? Sirfetch'd would be A tier. Sirfetch'd is awesome. I don't know why Sirfetch'd isn't on this list. Mr. Rime, though, I like him. He's got a good vibe going on. I like Mr. Mime having an evolution. Does it go up to A tier, though? I'm going to say yeah. I'm going to say lowest in A tier for now is Mr. Rime. I'm going to give it to him. Then we've got Runerigus. Runergus? I don't know how to say that for sure now that we're talking about it. I know about Configrigus, but Runerigus? That feels right. Runerigus. It just looks kind of weird. It's got a cool little concept. The way you get it is really obscure, which I find kind of cool, but it's C. I'll put it high C tier, but I don't really vibe with it that much. Then we've got Milcery or Milcery. Not it. Just not it for me. D. And you got Alcremie, which is kind of a goofy Pokemon. I'll put you in B minus though. B minus feels good. Then we got one of the weirdest Pokemon ever, Phalanx, which is a group of like 5 or 6 Phalanx, like in a line. I don't know what the heck is going on with this Pokemon. I'll give it. It is very memorable. I gotta give it that. Very, very memorable pocket monster this Phalanx is. Does that make it good? No. But for memorability, I'll put it in the middle of C tier. Pinchurin, I know it's like a gimmick Pokemon, but it's just so... Why? Why? I don't like it. But I don't necessarily dislike it. It'll go lower C tier. Snom. I'm gonna get some hate for this. Because a lot of people like Snom. I'm not on the Snom hype train. I'm just not. I'm not gonna be a hater. But C tier. Then we've got Frostmoth. Frostmoth is one of the most beautiful looking Pokemon ever. Now that I'm looking at it, it reminds me of like the ice versions of the Moonlight Butterfly in Crystal Cave. I guess it's a crystal version, not an ice version, but it is a pretty looking butterfly Pokemon. I really like Frostmoth. Super, super elegant, clean design. It's going A tier for me. Then we've got Stonjourner. It's like a... What are those rocks called? In the United Kingdom, I think. I forget what those rocks are called. It's like that, but a Pokemon. Kind of looks like the... It kind of looks like the rock guys from Mario. Whatever those are called. I can't remember anything. Thwomps. It looks like a Thwomp from Mario. It's another one that's kind of memorable, kind of not. I'll go lower B tier for you. Then we've got Eiscue, I don't even know how you say it. It's the same Pokemon these next two. Funny Pokemon, kind of dumb though. I'm gonna go low C tier for that one, and the one that has the full ice block, I like. It's pretty funny actually. We'll go mid-high B tier. Then we've got Indeedee. Listen, I know, okay, give me a bonk. Indeedee is kind of hot. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Something about that attitude. I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking now. I'm gonna quit before it gets any worse and just put him in B tier. Then we've got our regional Pikachu clone, Morpeko. Just kind of interesting. It's that one goth. Maybe goth isn't the right word. That one chick's main Pokemon. I barely even remember that whole thing, but it's a thing. But it's a C tier thing. It's a C tier kind of thing. It's a there C tier kind of thing. We got the elephant Pokemon. Cufant. It's supposed to be a cute little elephant. It's fine. I don't really love it though. It'll go mid C tier as well. Mid C tier feels good, but I actually really like Copperjaw. Copperjaw is pretty cool. It's another one of those high B tier. I feel like it's on the level of like this top of B tiers. Centiskorch, Copperjaw. I forget Obstagoon, the sheep Pokemon. feel like these top 5 in B are all really solid, but not quite A tier. And honestly, I want to drop Mr. Rhyme down. I feel like he's kind of in that vibe as well. Then we've got the fossil dragon Pokemon. So we've got Dracozolt, Arctozolt, Dracovish, and Arctovish. The most memorable one to me is Dracovish because it's by far the most competitively viable. Which kind of makes me hate it because Vicious Rend used to piss me off. And I also used to think it looked the dumbest, but because it was the best, it kind of grew on me. So I'm going to go B tier for Dracovish. Also B tier for Arctovish because it looks really cool. I'm also going to go B tier for Dracozolt because I think it looks kind of cool. But Arctozolt is my least favorite. I'm going to drop it to C. Alright. We're getting towards the end here now, and I think pretty highly of all these Pokemon coming up. So, next we got Duraludon. That is, yeah, that's how you say it. It's a Steel Dragon type. It's supposed to be like a skyscraper Pokemon, which is a really weird concept, but actually really cool in my opinion. I'm going to put Duraludon in A tier. I like it. Then we got the Dragon types. Dreepy, Dracloak, and Dragapult. Dreepy and Dracloak, I think are kind of meh. I honestly want to throw them in like mid-high B tier. It's like right here. But Dragapult is awesome. This just fast ghost dragon Pokemon. I really like it. I really vibe with it. Really like it. Dragapult is going S tier for me. Like 3rd place so far. I'll put it right behind Scorbunny. I don't go crazy just yet. Then we've got the legendaries. So we've got Zacian in both forms, Zamazenta in both forms, and Eternatus. Zacian with a sword I really like. It's literally just Sif, but a legendary Pokemon. That being said, even though it is probably my favorite of them all, I don't think I'm going to go S tier with it. Actually, no, I totally will. We'll go S tier. Probably the back of S tier, but it's awesome. Then we've got non-sword form Zacian, which looks so dumb. It's just this little stupid little wolf thing. That's going C tier. You kind of suck, non-sword Zacian. And then we got the shield Pokemon, Zamazenta. I honestly really like both designs. I'm going to put both in A tier. Definitely much less of a split in the designs. I like the red on the non-shield form, but the shield looks really like defensive and cool, which is the whole point for the shield form. Last, but I guess not least, we have Eternatus, which feels like this ultimate epic kind of legendary Pokemon, but it's kind of weird at the same time. At the same time that I think it's really cool, I kind of don't vibe with it at all. But I kind of do. I'm going to put it in B tier. Kind of the same vibe of these, kind of right around here. I'll put it at the top of B tier. It's the most B+ Pokemon. How about that? In actuality, I'd probably put Greedent in D tier and drop these down to F. I really hate these Pokemon. Let's put Cramorant at the bottom. And yeah, this is what I would say is my Pokemon Sword and Shield new Pokemon. Now, it doesn't have the DLC Pokemon. That bear legendary that somehow evolves, I probably put in the B to A range. I think that's pretty much all the new Pokemon. It doesn't have Sirfetch'd on here for some reason. He'd definitely be an A tier. But this is my Generation 8 Pokemon new additions. Is that the right word? Tier list. So I knew Corviknight would be up there. I didn't think he was number 1, but Corviknight, Grimmsnarl, Dragapult are my standouts. And I really like the cute designs of Scorbunny, Skwovet, and Wooloo. And then Zacian is just a cool Pokemon. Wolf with a sword in its mouth is cool. And since I hadn't played Sword since I started playing Dark Souls, but the boss Sif is literally just this. Except it just looks like a normal wolf instead of having like these wings, but still cool. But yeah, I really like the Pokemon in A tier. I love the Pokemon in S tier. B tier is pretty solid. I don't mind them. C tier is kind of And then when you get like halfway through C tier and below, I don't really vibe. Like at all. But yeah, that's my Pokemon Sword and Shield tier list. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. I think it's going to be the end of our tier list tonight. But a lot of Pokemon for my OG Pokemon fans. I hope you enjoyed the content. I'll catch y'all later. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out. See ya.